All right, it's January 18th, 2025, and Alejandro Mayorkas just threw Biden and his entire inner circle under the bus, blaming them for the 10 plus million illegal migrants that entered the country over the last 4 years. Wait till you hear this. Taking no accountability at all as Secretary of DHS. Also, Donald Trump following through on his promise for mass deportations. If you thought this was just campaign rhetoric or lip service, you are so wrong. Trump's team is deadly serious about this. Plans leaking to the Wall Street Journal yesterday of mass raids scheduled for January 21st, targeting sanctuary cities specifically. We have the details. Also, Ohio's governor, Mike DeWine, Republican, just screwed up big time. Vivek Ramaswamy may just have found his next job, and more stories as well from around the country. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. Really helps out the channel, and consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, worst DHS secretary this country's ever seen, bar none, just went on CNBC for a farewell type interview. An interview that clearly went off the rails after the network pointed out that under your watch, Secretary, more than 10 plus million illegals entered the country. That what you did, what you allowed to happen, has changed the conversation completely, changed the national dialogue completely, that Americans today are significantly more in favor of mass deportations than they were even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Don't you think you are the reason for this? I gotta say, Andrew Ross Sorkin did a halfway decent job, but it's 4 years too late. Watch as Mayorkas appears to throw Biden and his whole inner circle under the bus, admitting he's not the decision maker. Decisions were made in the Oval Office, and I, as secretary, just have to carry them out. What? Un-effing believable. Roll the tape.
Secretary, do you not, I mean, put the politics of the election aside if you want. Do you not look at the immigration issue in this country and what has transpired over the last 4 years, given the number of people coming into this country illegally, given the firestorm that this has created, the national dialogue about it, given some of the efforts, frankly, by the administration, especially early on, to be more lenient than they had been? Do you think none of those things, if you could go back, you would do differently?
Look, Andrew, yes, and you have to understand something, and this is not specific to government, but to any large organization, including a government administration. People have different views on what the correct policies should be, what the correct operational measures should be. Those disagreements, those different views are voiced, decisions are made, and then everyone marches in unity together. That is the nature of a large organization, and the government is no different.
But just so I'm clear, that are you suggesting your own personal views about how to operate this were at odds, or there was a distinction between your personal approach and how you would have wanted to do it and how maybe your bosses wanted to do it?
I don't want to get into the deliberative process. We're one team, and it's one effort, but this is not a revolutionary concept, that there are disparate views when one has many people involved in the decision-making process.
What a complete weasel. Your job was to stop illegal immigration. You allowed it. You lied under oath to Congress. You should be held accountable. This is the same DHS secretary, mind you, who tried to establish a ministry of truth. Remember that? Were you just following orders there too? This guy was a menace, leaving Donald Trump with a big, fat, giant mess to clean up. And it looks like that's exactly what Trump's doing, following through on his promise to conduct mass deportations. We've been saying that Trump 2.0 will not be anything like any previous Republican administration, even his first administration. They are deadly serious about this. The American people asked for it, they voted for it, and they are going to deliver and reverse the once thought permanent damage that Biden caused with all of these undocumented migrants entering the country. 10 plus million people
Breaking news on the growing mass deportation concerns here in our area as President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office in a matter of days. A new report out from the Wall Street Journal citing multiple sources saying the incoming administration is planning a, quote, large-scale immigration raid in Chicago next week. ABC News has not yet independently confirmed that reporting.
But it comes amid rising concerns over the mass deportation plan that Trump's border czar has promised to carry out. Tom Homan appearing on Fox News tonight saying there will be, quote, a big raid all across the country.
Plans leaking to the press yesterday show mass raids scheduled on the first full day of Trump's second term. The first place they're going, Chicago, Illinois, where thousands of arrests are expected to take place Tuesday morning. This comes after Chicago has seen more than 50,000 migrants enter the city since 2022. This is the same city whose mayor promised Trump and Tom Homan last month that he will not be allowing for any cooperation, no assistance from Chicago police, that he will resist, he said, that the people of Chicago will resist any attempt by ICE to deport their city's undocumented population. Really? Really? What are you going to do? Yet the people of Chicago, the citizens, the Americans who actually live in Chicago, they don't seem to agree with you. Watch what happened at a city hall meeting 2 days ago. The people of that city, the people of Chicago, the Americans want these mass deportations. They want their elected leaders to put Americans first. Roll the tape.
Good afternoon.
I want to know, how does it feel that Trump is in office right now? You see the Mayor Brandon Johnson? You underestimate us. You underestimate the black people, and you underestimate Chicago Red. We're the thorn in y'all side, and we're going to be the thorn on everybody else in this council member side too. If you don't stop what you're doing, we're going to take matters in our own hand, and we're going to stop it. You know that Trump had pulled 45% of the voter in the state of Illinois, 37 in the city of Chicago? That's the statistic. That means that Illinois is turning purple. We're going to turn red.
Y'all can bird dog me all y'all want, but if it's relationship over duty, then y'all don't serve the blue. And you can smirk all you want.
Mr. Sims, direct your attention towards me, please.
You're a criminal. Why do I got to address you? The feds need to address you. DOJ need to address you, and hopefully Donald Trump will address you. Because you're going to protect the undocumented. Why you going to allow for the citizens in the Chicago to suffer under your, what, 33%?
Tom Homan, make an example out this Negro right here first. Please come here first. Because you know what? We're going to help you. We want a forensic.
Ma'am, I would ask that you
keep your,
hold on a second. Stop her time. Stop her time.
You told Trump you ain't gonna blink? Well, we ain't either. You ain't above the law. And where you gonna run to when Trump pours that Trump card out on you?
There's a 10-year prison sentence when you want to stand up here for those illegals.
And at that city hall meeting, the city council, which is made up of these uber left-wing activists, sided with Mayor Johnson to continue Chicago's sanctuary city status. Don't they realize that their voters don't want that? They're elected to carry out the will of the people, especially at a local level. Tom Homan confirming to the Wall Street Journal that yes, these raids are scheduled for Tuesday. They won't only happen in Chicago, but massive raids are scheduled in sanctuary cities across the country. We're starting with the criminals and we're throwing them out. Booyah. In another story, Vivek Ramaswamy was passed over for J.D. Vance's Ohio Senate seat. Governor DeWine, a Republican, chose his lieutenant governor, his loyal lieutenant governor, John Husted, to fill the seat. This was a big mistake by Governor DeWine. Trump personally asked DeWine to consider Vivek for the seat, making it clear he wanted Vivek in that seat. And he not only didn't choose Vivek, but released a statement after, saying, I don't like to be pressured on executive decisions, basically spitting in Trump's face. This opens up Vivek for the Ohio governor run in 2 years, which he should absolutely do. It also lets him continue to work on Doge for the foreseeable future. In another story, Trump's new DHS nominee, Christi Noem, sat for her Senate hearing yesterday, being grilled for multiple hours by these screeching Dems, which she manhandled, did a great job. This is a very important cabinet seat. Personally, I'd like to see Trump and Doge completely abolish the DHS. It's a newer agency. It was only established in 2002. Now it has over 260,000 employees. Talk about government expansion. Many of them come from other departments which fall under DHS, but the reason this cabinet seat's so important is because this is where all of the dangerous backhanded tricks and these un-American programs reside, folks. It's such a huge department that there's so many things happening there that no one knows about. This is the department where they established the Ministry of Truth a few years ago. This is the agency that was policing misinformation on Twitter and these other social media sites. This is the agency that rolled out that CBP One app, the mobile app that the Biden administration uses for undocumented migrants to fly into the country. So many crazy programs and policies that are lost in the vastness of DHS. Well, Christi Noem, she's one badass woman. She's not having any of it. Listen to her pledge to abolish all disinformation boards and expose what the Biden administration did over the last 4 years to curtail Americans' freedom of speech. Roll the tape.
Your predecessor, the current Secretary of DHS, established a disinformation board using taxpayer resources to police speech on the internet and elsewhere, to tag American citizens' viewpoints as either legitimate or not legitimate, and use the power of the state to censor them, including having them removed and perhaps penalized. This has got to be the darkest chapter, I think, in DHS's short history. He eventually withdrew the board under intense criticism, but has never fully repudiated it and never promised not to do it again. Will you pledge to us here today that under your leadership, there will never be a disinformation board or anything like it at DHS, and you will be a champion for the free speech and First Amendment rights of all Americans?
Senator, there will not be a board such as that under my leadership at the Department of Homeland Security.
Fantastic.
In another story, CNN was just found liable for lying and smearing a United States Navy veteran. The smear, an outright lie, took place on Jake Tapper's show, where the network claimed Zachary Young was an illegal profiteer who had charged Afghan evacuees thousands of dollars to leave the country during Biden's botched Afghan withdrawal. The jury ruled that CNN owes Zachary Young $4 million in financial damages, $1 million in emotional damages. Not good for CNN, and the pain's not over yet. The court is now moving on to punitive damages, which they're going to take up next week. Here was the moment the jury read their verdict. Watch this.
Is that correct?
Correct. Pardon me?
I said, I understand y'all have reached a verdict.
We have.
All right. You have the verdict form with you?
I do.
Can you hand that to the bailiff, please?
I will.
Zachary Young, plaintiff versus Cable News Network, Inc., defendant. Verdict form number 1. Do you find by the greater weight of the evidence that defendant CNN committed defamation per se against plaintiff Zachary Young? Yes. Number 2, do you find by the greater weight of the evidence that defendant CNN committed defamation by implication against plaintiff Zachary Young? Yes.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.